Back with the Newsfeed late night on Newsroom Africa Channel 405. Following an address by President Cyril Ramaphosa, he wanted to address the reopening of schools and the management of resources. As I mentioned, schools will take a break from the 27th of July until the 24th of August. However, grade 12s will take a break for a week and will be back again at school. And the grade 7s will take a break for 2 weeks and will be back again at school, while the other grades will be returning then on the 24th of August. This certainly means that the academic year has been extended now beyond 2020, and the Minister of Education, Angie Motshekga, set to help us to understand what the regulations are going to mean. Now, in terms of the school nutrition program, is going to continue. That program continues according to the President in schools, and that is going to be what the parents are going to be able to go to school and get nutrition for their children. So that certainly will be something that Equal Education would want to respond to at this time. But also the President talking tough on corruption. There's a committee that's been set that includes the SIU, that includes SARS, that's including the SAPS investigators, that's including the NPA, that's including IPID, a lot of other players coming in together to investigate currently about 36 cases under investigation and are going to be prosecuted as well. So that's some of what we're hearing coming from the President tonight. Let's speak to DA interim leader John Steenhuisen now to get reaction from him. John, good evening and thank you for your time tonight. The President talking tough on corruption. As far as the reopening of schools, nothing new really being said there except what has always been said. The WHO has always said the reopening of schools needs to happen in a context of low infection rate in communities. And of course, it's always been baffling why we are returning our kids to school when numbers are shooting up.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the big thing here is this decision this evening is not backed up by the data. It's not backed up by the science, and it is certainly not backed up by the figures. All the international experience as well as our local figures show us very clearly that the risk of transmission in schools and among school-going children is very, very low, and our own figures prove that. But the impact of the decision that's made this evening is going to have very, very long-lasting impacts on South Africa's children going forward. It's going to deepen inequality. It's going to have children who essentially will not go back to school. And there was an excellent article in The Economist magazine this week about how devastating school closures are in developing countries like South Africa, and how people will, go on to do the children will go on to do other things rather than going back to school. And I think that this decision that was made this evening was made in the best interest of the teacher unions and not in the best interest of the children of South Africa. And I think that it's a decision that's going to have ramifications for many, many years to come. I think the inequality as well is going to be deepened. We saw the President this evening talking about public schools. We don't have an idea about what is going to happen with private schools. Does this extend to private schools? If private schools are going to stay open, does this not give children in private schools an unfair advantage over learners in public schools? And these are all questions that absolutely remain unanswered as we sit here this evening.
Now, of course, 60 organizations having deliberated on this and broad consultation, the President tells us that there was no consensus, there was no agreement on the best route to follow here.
Well, of course not, because everyone who is adopting a scientific approach, looking at the data, people who are educators, people who are in the education speciality fields, have all been urging that schools remain open because they understand the devastating effect that this is going to have on the future of South Africa's children, as well as their ability to be able to compete in what is essentially becoming a worldwide marketplace. And I'm not surprised there was no consensus, because you had the teachers' unions on the one side representing a very strong lobby and who have, I think, a golden ticket into the government's thinking through SATU, who have clearly won the day today. It's very clear the President has bent the knee in the favor of the unions rather than in the best interest of the children. And I think that is a decision that's going to have wide-ranging ramifications for South Africa going forward.
What about the president talking tough on corruption tonight, having signed a proclamation that empowers the SIU to immediately investigate corruption as far as the procurement of PPEs and just generally the management of resources that have got to do with the fight of this pandemic?
Well, this is a president who's been talking tough on corruption for the last 5 or 6 years, and we're yet to see any fruit from that tough talk. What we don't need is talk. We need actual action. We need to see arrests. We need to see people going to jail. And most notably, we need to see those who are close to the president's own party who are using this crisis to rip off the public taxpayer and to line their own pockets going to jail. And until we see that, it's very difficult to take it seriously. But here's the thing. At the beginning of the coronavirus crisis, we recommended to the president they set up an inspector general for the COVID funding who would have been able to investigate this sort of stuff at source. The SIU, if one looks at their constitutional mandate, can only look at corruption retrospectively. It's very difficult for them to be able to be on the ground every day, as an inspector general would be doing, to be able to ensure that this is able to be beaten. Instead, we're now going to have a situation where I think we've seen a lot of talk. I'm not seeing a lot of action. We've had the Zondo Commission going for how many years now? How many arrests have we seen? How many civil recoveries? The answer is very little.
Now, John, as far as the measures that the president was talking about, he mentioned a number of things that have been done, including 70 billion rand in tax relief, which he says is getting to the people. It is helping those companies that are supposed to benefit from it. He says there is, of course, the reprioritization of the budget. There is mobilization of loans from multilateral development banks, the African Development Bank, the new development bank, and they're waiting approval still from the IMF as they're in talks with them, saying all these measures are helping towards some kind of a recovery in the economy.
Well, I think the president might have this existing on a clipboard or a whiteboard in his office somewhere, but it's not borne out by the reality. The reality on the ground is that even the most noble intentions, and let's be honest, there have been some very good ideas from governments about how that relief could be extended to business, has run head-on into the incapable state. So the UIF TERS program, SASSA grants, etc., are not reaching the people on the ground because the organizations responsible for them are just completely incapable of being able to ensure that they are able to reach where they need on the ground. If these things were working so well, why are we sitting after the first 3 months of the coronavirus impact on South Africa with 3 million South Africans who've lost their work? If these packages were as great as the president has made out this evening, why are we seeing such a huge rise in unemployment? 26% of those women. If these packages and relief are working so well, why have we got 51% of South Africans now food insecure, with at least one member of the family going hungry every 4 days? Why do we have a child in every household going hungry regularly? These are the facts. These are the statistics that have come out. And so while the intentions may be noble, the reality on the ground is that the incapable state is unable to ensure that these things are able to reach the people who need them the most.
John Steenhuisen, interim leader of the Democratic Alliance. I appreciate your time tonight.